Kol Hashema Hallelujah, Kol Hashema Hallelujah, 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 Hallelujah.
Baruch Adonai v'yamein, Baruch Adonai Shechin Yerushalayim.
Baruch Adonai Elohim, Elohei Yisrael, Osei Niftot Levado, Uvaruch Shem Kivodo Leolam, Umyalei Kivodo et Kol Haaretz, Amen ve'amen.
Right, we continue page 101 as David praised Adonai in the presence of all assembled. Vayevarach David et Ha'Havim David.
Atahu Adonai Elohim Asher Bacharta Ba'avram Ba'hotzeto Me'or Kasdim V'samta Shemo Avraham Umatzata et Levodo Laman Lefanecha.
We recall the covenant that God made with Avraham when he became Avraham, to give him the land of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, and the Perizzites.
V'hayam b'kata lifnehem v'yaru katov hayam baya basha ve'et vehem hashlachta b'mitzolot kamo even b'mayim azi.
102, Vayosha.
V'yosha Adonai b'yom hahu et Yisrael miyad Mitzrayim v'yar Yisrael et Mitzrayim me'al sifat hayam v'yar Yisrael et hayad Hagodolo Asher Asa Adonai b'Mitzrayim Yeru Ha'am et Adonai v'yaminu Adonai u'Moshe Avdo.
Az Yashir Moshe ben Yisrael, Ashir Azal Adonai v'im Lemor, Ashir Adonai Kigo.
Adonai Kigo Ha'am Sisron Marvayam Ozi v'Zimradia Vayehi Lishua Aziv Zimradia Vayehi Lishua Aziv Zimradia Vayehi Lishua Oziv Zimradia Vayehi Lishua.
Ze'elin ve'aveu Elohim. Himicha Adonai nirabakoch, Himicha Adonai taratz oyev. Saluk for my mother, Micha Mochalim. Shamami Mirgazun Chil Achazu Shepalashet Az Nifrafedom. Bidol Zeracha.
Adonai Yimloch Leolam Vaed. Adonai Yimloch Leolam Vaed. Ki Adonai Macham Shel Bagayim V'alu Mashim Bahar Tzion Lishpat et Har Esav V'hayatam Adonai Lucha V'hayai Adonai L'melech Al Kol Haaretz V'yomahu Yi Adonai Echad U'Shemo Echad.
Continue on page 104 with Nishmat Kol Chai. The breath of all that lives praises you.
Nishmat kol chai tivarech et shimcha Adonai Eloheinu.
Adonai Eloheinu lo yishan hameorer yeshenim hamekitz nid.
Nihalelcha unshebechacha unfarecha umrich et shem kadshecha kamur la David. Baruchi nafshi et Adonai v'kol karavai et shem kadsho. Ha'el b'ta'amot utzeka. Hagadol b'chavod shemecha. Hagibor nenetzach v'hanora v'rotecha. Hamelach hayoshev al kisei ram v'nisa.
Sharkoach to Mark Miller for a lovely Pezukei de Zimra. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Great job, sir. Okay, we continue with page 105 with the Shacharit service. So before we do, I just want to highlight something that I was thinking about as I was listening to Mark Davin. And if you go back just on page 104, and it's the bottom section of that first paragraph, where we say, Varanai lo yanum velo yishan hame orer yeshenim hame kitz nidamim hame siach il mim hametir asurim, and it's this list, right? And so in English, you guide the world with kindness as creatures with compassion. Adonai, who neither slumbers or sleeps, you stir the sleeping, give voice to the speechless, free the fettered, support the falling, raise those bowed down. You alone do we acknowledge. And this is I think this is a very interesting section, and I'll tell you why. Because generally on Shabbat, we're not supposed to really be asking God for things, right? There's only one section in the liturgy on Shabbat where we kind of have a request, and that actually comes in the Kaddish Shalem. Right? We request that you accept our prayers and everything like that. But generally, we don't have any requests. So this is a very, very smart way for the liturgical minded people out there to get in a request without actually coming out and asking for it, right? Because you're saying, well, God, you are supporting those who are falling, you're raising those who are bowed down, you are really just helping everyone, right? But we don't say, please help everyone, but we say, you are helping everyone. So it's kind of like, like a little bit of, you're doing so much, right? But without actually asking for it. So there's just kind of little subtle things sometimes in the liturgy that you have to look for that are actually very, very interesting and have a little bit of a comical side to them. Anyway, wanted to bring that to your attention. We continue with Shochenah, the beginning of the Shacharit service on page 105. Shochenah marom vekadosh shemo befi yeshem titalal uvdivrei tzedachim titbarach ובלשון חסידים תתרומם, ובקרב קדושים תתקדש, ומקלות רבבות עמך בית ישראל. שכן החובת כל יצורים, לפניך אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, להודות, להלל, לשבח, לפאר, לרומם, להדר, לברך, להלל ולקלס, על כל דברי שבתשפחות, דוד בן ישי, עבדך משיחך. 106. ישתבח שמך לעד מלכנו המלך לשמוע. ברכות והודאות מעתה ועד עולם. ברוך אתה אדוני אל מלך גדול בל תשבחות. אל ההודעות אדון הנפלאות הבוחר בשירי זמרה. מלך אל חיי העולמים. חצי קדיש, page 106, please rise if you're able. יתקדל ויתקדש שמי רבם, בעלמא תירקתם לך מלכותי, בחייכון יומך לישראל, בגלה בזמן קריב ימרו, אמן. יהי שמי רבם מבורך ממיה. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתלש מקודשם. ברכו לאלה כבודה ושירתה, תושתב נחמתה דמירן בעלמה, ימרו אמן. ברכו את אדוני המבורך. ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, יוצר ובורא חושך, עושה שלום בורא את הכל. Be seated. Continue of the middle of the page, page 107. אין כרכך אלוהינו בעולם הזה, ואין זולתך הוא מלכנו לחיי העולם הבא. אפס חוגה עלינו לימות המשיח, אינו מלך מושיענו לתחיית המתים. Continue with El Adon, the Master Adonai, page 108. El Adon al kol hamasim, baruch ומבורך בפי כל נשמה, גואלו וטובו, מלא עולם, דת ותבונה סובבים אותו. המתקהל על חיות הקודש, נדר בכבוד על המרכבה, זכות ומשול לפני כיסו, חסד ורחמים לפני כבודו. טובים מאורות שם ברא אלוהינו, יצרם בדעת, בבינה ובחסקל, כוח וגבורה, נתן בהם להיות מושלים בקרב תבל. מלאים זיו ופיקים נוגה, נאה זיום בכל העולם, שמחים וצאתם וששים בבואם, עושים באימה רצון קודנם, פר וכבוד נותנים לשמו, צולה ורינה לזכר מלכותו, קרא לשמש ויזרח אור, רע והתקין צורת הלבנה, שבח נותנים לו, חוצבה מרום, תפארת וגדולה, סרבים ויופרים וחיות הקודש. Continue privately, page 109. לאל אשר שבחו מעשים ביום השביעי ונקרא ליום שבת, שבו שבת מכל מלאכתו ביום השביעי. לפיכך יפאר Next week, I will bring back the thing that I started doing months and months and months ago of explaining sections of our liturgy and bringing them to life more. I'll do that with some sections such as this one on page 109 next week. So stay tuned for that. Page 110. Kulam ahuvim, kulam berurim, kulam giborim, וכולם עושים באימה ורצון קונם. וכולם בודקים את פיהם בקדושה ובתורה, בשירה ובזמרה ובזמרה, שירה ובזמרה ובזמרה. בשירה וזמרה ומברכים, בשירה וזמרה ומשבחים, ומפארים ומריצים ומקדישים וממליכים, בשירה וזמרה את שם הקדוש. וכולם מקבלים עליהם עול מלכות שמיים זה מזה, ונותנים רשות זה לזה, להקדיש לעצמם ברכת רוח, בשפה ברורה ונעימה קדושה, כולם כחרנים אומרים ביראה, קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות לכל הארץ כבודו. ואופנים חיות הקודש ברשכתו מנסים מצרפים, יומתם משבחים ויאמרים ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו, כי הוא לבדו בו ערך הסף. המחדש בטבו בכל יוד מטר. קמו לעושי אורים גדולים, כי לעולם חסדו. אור חדש על ציון תאיר, 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 ונזכה כולנו מהרה לאורו, ונזכה כולנו מהרה לאורו. ברוך אתה אדוני יוצר המאורות. Page 111, we gather our seat in preparation for the Shema. Ahava rabba avtanu Adonai Eloheinu chem lagdor. V'har einin b'toratecha v'dabei b'mitzvotecha v'yachei levaveinu lahava u'rat shemecha lo nivosh l'makim. והביאנו לשלום מארבע כנפות הארץ, ותוליכנו קומיות לארצנו, כי אל פה ישועות אתה, ובנברך מכל לשון, וקרבתנו לשמך הגדול, סלע באמת, להודו לך רבי אהבה, ברוך אתה אדוני, הבוחר מישראל באהבה. Concentrate on every single word. Hold it out with me. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Ve'yavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavcha uvechol nafshecha v'chol meodecha v'hayu advarim ha'ele asher anochi metzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantan levanecha v'dibarta bam b'shivtecha v'veitecha uv'lechtecha v'derech uv'shochbecha uv'kumecha ושתם להיות על ידיך, ויתודפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובישעריך, והיה עם שמות. Continuing privately in the middle of the page. בסרתם אבתם אלוהים אחרים, משתחוויתם להם אחריו אדוני, ואכם ביצר שמיים לא יהיה מטר, ותמותים נפלא, אתם ארץ נפשכם. ושמתם את דברי אלוהיכם ועל נפשכם, למנעתם אותם, את נכם לברבם בשפלה ביתך לתודש. ותמוצו ביתך וישברך למען יראיכם ביכם. על האדמה שנשבע על אבותיכם בארץ. ויאמר אדוני אל משה לאמור דבר בני ישראל. Page 113. ויאמר אדוני אל משה לאמור דבר אל בני ישראל, ואמרת עליהם ויעשו להם ציצית. כנפי בגדיהם לדורותם ונענו ויעשו להם ציצית, כנפי בגדיהם לדורותם ונענו על ציצית, הקנה בציל תכלת יהיה לציצית, וראיתם אותו, וזכרתם את כל מצוות אדוני ועשיתם אותם, ולא תטורו אחרי לבבכם ואחרי עיניכם אשר אתם זונים אחריהם, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להילחם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. ויצינו כל מקשם בו. לדור ודור קיים שמו קיים וחיסון אחר ומלכות אמונה תולדת קיימת. Sometimes I think about why is it that God has to constantly remind us, such as in the Shema, that God brought us out of Egypt, right? This was already preordained. God told Abraham, you'll be slaves in a foreign land, and, because I'm Jewish and humor is part of our neshama, I always think, it's God's way of saying, hey, when we ask, what have you done for me lately? It's like, hello, Egypt. You forget about that? Anyway, so with Rav Chaim, middle of page 113. Emet shatahu Adonai Eloheinu v'le'avoteinu malkeinu melech avoteinu go'alinu v'le'avoteinu yotzereinu tzur yeshuateinu podenu matzim shemecha en Elohim zulatecha. 114. Ezrat avoteinu atal melam v'gemishim lo dor vador ashrei ish yishmel mitzvotecha Emet atahu Adonai mecha b'melech atahu rishon v'tahu rachon v'yechasu mayim tzareihem. Ramrisakon Tehilo leleyon baruch hu vorach Moshe bnei Yisrael echadisha b'simcha rabah yameru kulam mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai mi chamocha nedar ba'kodesh norati lot הוסף אלה. שירה חדשה שמחו גאולים, לשמך שפת הים. יחד כולם הודו והמליכו, ויאמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, לעולם ועד. יללה יללה ay lay 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 so Israel kuma be'ezrat Yisrael ufedechinu mecha Yehuda ve'Yisrael go aleinu Adonai tzvaot shemo kedosh Israel, Baruch atah Adonai, God Israel. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu levoteinu, Eloi Avraham, Eloi Yitzchak, Eloi Yaakov, Eloi Sarah, Eloi Rivka Leah, Ha'el Agadol, Hagibor ve'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasim Tovim ve'Konei Hakol, וזוכר חסדי אבות מביאו אל לפני פניהם למען שמו ביהבה מלך עוזר וכן משיח מגן ברוך אתה אדוני מגן אברהם ובוקע שרה אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני בחיי מתים אתה רב להושיע משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם. מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים ברחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות ומינו מלך ממית ומחיה ומצמיח ישועה ונאמן אתה לחיי מתים ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים. Page 116, the Kedusha, we put our feet together. נקדש את שמך בעולם כשם שמקדישים אותו בשמי מרום ככתוב היד נביאך וקרזל זה ויאמר קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלוך לארץ כבודו. אז בקול רעש גדול אדיר וחזק משמיעים קול מתנשאים לעומת שרפים לעומתם ברוך יאמרו ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. ממקומך מלכנו מלכנו תופיע ותמלוך עלינו מחכים אנחנו לך. מתי תמלוך בציון, בקרוב בימינו לעולם ועד תשכון. תתקדל ותתקדש בתוך ירושלים עירך לדור ודור ולנצח נצחים. ועינינו תראנה מלכותך כדבר האמור בשירי עוזך. על ידי דוד, משיח צדקך. על ידי דוד, משיח צדקך. ימלוך ארנה לעולם לעצם. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד קולך, ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך נקדיש. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד קולך, ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך נקדיש. בשבחך אלוהינו, מפינו לא ימוש לעולם ועד. כי המלך גדול, כי המלך גדול, וקדוש אתה. לדור ודור, לדור ודור, לדור ודור נגיד גולך, ולנצח נצחים, ולנצח נצחים, קדושתך נקדיש. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש. Continuing privately, 117. If you're not finished davening, please continue at your own pace. We continue with Kaddish Shalem, 138. יתקרא וקרא שמי רבה, בעלמא תירותיו מלכמלכותי, בחיי חונך ישראל, בגלה וזמקרבים מרו, אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם ולעלמיה, יתברך. יתברך וישמח ותרב ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתהלל בשמי קודשם, ברכו לעילה מכל כתב שירתם, תושחתה ונחמתה, דמירן במביא בעלמה וימרו, אמן. תתקבל צאתון ועונדכו ישראל, קודם אבן ושמי וימרו, אמן. יהי שלמה רב מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו וסוף וימרו, אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום עלינו, ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו, ועל כל ישראל, יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו, ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו, ועל כל ישראל. יעשה שלום, שלום עלינו, ועל כל ישראל. Vimeru, amen. Okay, my friends, we continue with Seder Kriyat HaTorah, the Torah service on page 139. There is nothing like you, Adonai, ein kamocha. Ein kamocha va'elohim Adonai, ve'en kemasecha, malchutecha malchut, kol olamim, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור. אדוני מלך, אדוני מלך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. אדוני עוז לעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום. ורחמים, היטיבה ברצונך את ציון. תבנה חומות ירושלים, כי בך לבד בטחנו. מלך הרם ונישא, אדון עולמים. Okay, we are continuing now. Let's say the blessing over studying Torah together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu mitzotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Okay, so we are on Parashat Valeri. This is the, as I mentioned last night, the last Parsha of the book of Breshit. And we have lots going on in this week's Parsha. And, you know, this is, as some would say, this is the end of an era, the era of Yaakov. His time is coming to a close. And he's going to be blessing all of his sons as well as his grandchildren, as you might remember from my Shabbat blast this week. And he doesn't really hold anything back, you know. He with some of his sons that he might have had some issues in the past. He leaves it all out there. You know, Yaakov has no regrets. So really try and pay attention to some of these blessings, because some of them, I don't know if they're necessarily blessings. You know, for instance, what we're going to be reading very soon, when Yaakov is talking to his son Ruvain. You know, he says, You mounted your father's bed. You brought disgrace. My couch, you mounted. It gets pretty interesting. Okay, so feel free when you're following the Torah reading in your Chumash and your Eitz Chaim to really be reading these, because very interesting blessings that Yaakov is giving. So like I said, some are not always blessings. All right, and we have some special readers as well this week. So, Caitlin, if you please, we have Dave Mogul, who is reading the first 3 aliyot for us. Dave Mogul. So, if you can unmute him, Caitlin, or give him that capability, that would be swell. Perfect. All right. So, for those of you at home, we are on page 298. We are on chapter 49, and the first aliyah is verses 1 through 4. So again, 298, chapter 49, verses 1 through 4. Dave, please take it away.
Okay. Vayikra Yaakov el banav, vayomer, asfu ve'agida lachem et asher yikra etchem vayakarit hayamim. Ikavisu vishimu b'nei Yaakov, vishimu el Yisrael avichem. Reuven b'korei ata, kohi v'reshit oni, yeter se'et v'yeter ahaz. Pachas kamayim al tahar, ki alita mishkave avicha, az hilalta yotzer ihi alaha.
So as I just mentioned before, is it a blessing? I don't know. It's questionable. It's questionable indeed. All right. So we're going to be continuing now with the second aliyah. This is verses 5 through 7. Now we are talking about Shimon Velevi, right? They're a pair, okay, and that's found on page 300.
Shimon v'Levi achim kalei Hamas mechoretechem v'sodam al tevohu nafshi v'chalam al techad yevodi ki be'apam hargu ish uvirtzonam ikru shohor aror apam ki ahaz ve'evratam ki kashata achal kain be'akov v'afitzehem be'Yisrael.
Right. So if you remember from a couple weeks ago with Shimon and Levi, right, they are remembered for some of their not so great behavior, their violent attack on the city of Shechem in revenge, essentially, for their sister Dinah being raped, essentially. And so you really hear that in Yaakov's blessing, where he says, "Cursed be their anger so fierce and their wrath so relentless, that I will divide them. I will divide the obviously the tribes, not just these two brothers, because we have this great thing with this parsha, is we go from just simply individuals to a nation." So, all right, we're continuing with verse number 8. This is 8 through 12, the third aliyah, and Dave is going to continue for us, page 300.
Yehuda ata yoducha achecha yidecha beorech oivecha yishtachavu lecha b'nei avicha gor arye Yehuda miterech b'nei alita kara ravat karye uklavi miyikimenu lo yasor shevet mehuda umkochek mi ben raglav ad ki yavo shilo velo yichat amihim. Osri la gefin iro vilasorecha beni atono. Ki base bayayin levosho uvdam anavim sutoho. Hakli li anayim miyayin uvein shanahim mechalahav.
Sure, Koach. Dave, I could listen to you read Torah all day, honestly. I don't know about the rest of you, but I love it. I truly love it. So, Yishar Koach to you.
Thank you.
All right, so now we are on to Yehuda, Judah. And Judah is given a lot of praise, but what's also very interesting about these blessings is the fact that they're not only about the specific brother, but they really deal with what is going to be the behavior and the nature of that particular tribe into the future. And how could Yaakov know all this, right? How does Yaakov know that Ephraim, who is the younger son, is going to be the one who is really going to follow God's laws better, and is really going to be someone who is very devout? How does Yaakov have this insight? We know that he has a special connection with God and everything else, but it's quite miraculous that he's able to see so far into the future, hundreds and hundreds of years after he has been long gone. He's able to see because God has allowed him to see. So we continue now with the fourth Aliyah, and this is verses 13 through 15. Again, still we are in chapter 49 as well. And this is found on page 302 in your Chumashim, in your Eitz Chaim. And we are now going to turn to Miss Carol Turoff. So, Kaylin, if you please, we want to highlight Carol. All right, we want to get her unmuted as well. Carol, if you could. Okay, perfect. All right, Carol, verses 13 through 15, take it away. Zevulun.
Zevulun lechof yami mishkon, vehu lechof oniyot, v'yachato al tzidon, yisaschar chamo garem, rovetz bein hamishvatayim, vayam minucha ki tov, v'yet haaretz ki na'ema, vayet shichmo lizbol, vayehi lemas oved.
Excellent, excellent. And so our Chumash points out something interesting about this, right? Is that the usual order when you're mentioning the brothers, the tribes, if you will, is that it's Issachar and then Zevulun. But our Chumash mentions this, and they say that this is actually purposefully, of course, because everything in the Torah is purposeful, and it's reflecting a time when Zevulun was really up and coming, if you will. So that's why they're put first. And we also have Issachar. And the Chumash says that this is a tribe that's it's not even necessarily even mentioned in the section of we read for Haftarot of Judges, the first thing, and because it played an insignificant role in terms of conquering the land of Israel. And so Yaakov, he is kind of chiding it passively for submitting, right? So this blessing is actually less so about the actual brother Yisachar and more so about what will happen in the future, as I mentioned, of Yaakov being able to see so far into the future. I mean, I can't imagine having that ability. I think it would make me a nervous wreck to be able to know what's going to happen, before it happens. Like, I would be overwhelmed. I don't know how Yaakov handled it, but that's why he's Yaakov. All right, so we will continue with verses 16 through 18. We're going to hear a little bit about Dan, and page. This goes to 302 and 304, verse 16.
Dan yadin amo, ki achad shivtei Yisrael, yihi dan nachash ale derech, shefifon ale orach, anoshech igvei sus, vayipol rovo achor, lishuatecho kiviti Adonai.
All right. So what's interesting here, again, this is mostly dealing with the tribe of Dan, not the son, but is that it's talking about their migration, right? So a viper by the path that bites the horse's heels, that the rider is thrown backward. This is very interesting because when the tribe of Dan was settling, it was a small tribe, and when they were trying to settle into their assigned territory, they weren't really able to do so. And so as a result of that, they had to really kind of keep moving north. And so that when it's talking about the path being not safe, that's kind of a metaphorical allusion to that. Okay. All right. So we are now on the fifth Aliyah. which Carol is going to chant for us. Excuse me, the 6th Aliyah, so wonderfully. This is page 303, verse 19. Carol, if you please.
Not me. No, not me, Cantor.
Oh, no? Oh, I'm so
No.
sorry. Okay.
Somebody else.
My sincere apologies. Oh, I think I actually had this one. This is God. God gedudad yegudenu vehu yagud akev measher shmena lachmo vehu yitain adonai melech Naftali Aliyah sheluchan otein imrei shafer. All right, so we had two tribes or brothers, if you will. In this, we had that of God. And his the territory of God is east of the Jordan River, and there were a lot of wars that were engaged with this tribe of God, but there isn't a lot of scholarship on that itself. Now, with Naphtali that we have, there's as well as Asher. Again, with the tribe of Asher, we know that name Asher actually means fortune or happiness, right? Comes from the word of similar word Ashrei, right, which we say of happiness. What's interesting is that about the tribe of Asher is they settled in an area that was supposed to be, very, very, like the land itself was very, very fertile. It was very prosperous land. And it was inside what was thought of as a Canaanite area that had a lot of activity. Now, the tribe did not necessarily really succeed in capturing the cities that really would allow them to thrive in that area. And so when we read this, it says, Asher's bread shall be rich, and he shall yield royal dainties. All right, that's really referring to the land itself that the tribe was living in. And then we go to Naphtali, and with this tribe itself, it's the text says the Torah says Naphtali is a hin let loose which yields lovely fawns. Well, this is really kind of up for a lot of different types of interpretation, but we know that the tribe of Naphtali was kind of very, very north in the upper Galilee. But we don't know, like their specific boundaries as well. All right. This is now the 7th Aliyah. We're on page 304, verses 22 through 26 with Yosef. Big blessing for Yosef. Ben porat Yosef, ben porat alei ayin, banot sadale shur, Yamaru varobu, vayistemu balei chitzim, vateshev beitan kashto, vayafozu zorei adav, midei avir Yaakov, Misham ro'eh even Yisrael, me'avicha, vayazrecha ve'et, Shaddai vivarechecha, Birkot Shamayim me'al, Birkot tehom rovetz et tachat, Birkot Shaddayim veracham, Birkot avicha, Gavru al Birkot horayim, Atavat givot olam, Tiena lerosh Yosef, Ulkan kod nezir echav. And we stop right before the blessing for Benjamin, but Yosef, right? We have this very, very lavish blessing for Yosef. And besides the fact that obviously Yaakov has a soft spot for Yosef, there's much more at play besides that. So what's interesting here is if you look at the word Yosef, it actually has a couple different meanings. One of which is to add, to gather, right? Remember that for when Yosef was being named. But actually, Yosef, not a formal tribe, if you will, it's being substituted for the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh, his sons. And this is very rare. This doesn't usually happen often. And this is going to, essentially designate the northern kingdom of Israel. And where it talks about Yosef, where it says that Yosef was a wild ass, a wild donkey in a sense. This is a metaphor, though, that kind of alludes really to how the tribes of Yosef, of Ephraim and Manasseh, were truly very, very free. And but also that the area in which they were in was very sparsely populated, so they had lots of area. One interesting thing here is on verse 23 with archers. So nowhere else in the Torah do we hear about archers attacking Yosef. So this is very interesting, and this may actually be Yaakov trying to foreshadow what is going to happen with the attacks on the tribes of Ephraim and Manasseh. And there's just so much that I could go on about this particular blessing, but we've so much to talk about, and of course, so little time to do so. Now, we are going to be moving on. So I'd like to turn the floor over again to Miss Carol Turoff, who is going to be chanting the Haftarah for us. This is the Haftarah for Parashat Vayechi. Carol, do you have a page number for us?
No, not in my, no.
All right, just give me 30 seconds and I'll be able to tell you.
Okay.
Would you like to share anything just about the meaning of the Haftarah?
No, not really. It's just that it's the last one and then we move on.
Right, of course. All right, so the Haftarah for Parashat Vayechi is found on page 313, all right? Comes from the book of Malachim, Kings, and it's actually dealing with David, King David, and while his life is coming to a close. So there's the similarity, the parallel of David, King David, who is at the end of his life here in this Haftarah that we'll read in just a second, as well as Yaakov. So that's like a big macher, a big player in all of Judaism, right? End of an era, so to speak, as I said before. And so we're hearing about what is, what's the legacy that they're living behind, which is what I talked about last night for all of us. What do we want to be remembered for in this coming year of 2021? So, Carol, if you please, this is on page 313,
okay.
the Haftarah for Vayechi from Kings Aleph.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nvi'im tovim v'ratzav v'divrei hane'emarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai habocher b'Torah u'Moshe avdo u'Yisrael amo u'b'nvi'ei ha'emet v'tzedek. Vayikrevu Yemei David Lamut Vayitzav Et Shlomo B'no Lemor Anochi Holek B'derech Kol Haaretz V'hazakta V'hayata La'ish V'shamata Et Mishmeret Adonai Elohecha V'alechet B'drachav Lishmor Chukotav Mitzvotav U'mishpatav V'yidotav Kakatu b'Torah Moshe Lima'an taskil et kol asher taseh v'et kol asher tifneh sham Lima'an yakim Adonai et divaro asher דיבר עלי לאמור, אם ישמרו בניך את דרכם ללכת לפניי באמת, בכל לבבם ובכל נפשם, לאמור לא יכרת לך איש מעל כיסא ישראל. וגם אתה ידעת את אשר עשה לי יואב בן צרויה, אשר עשה לשני שרי צבאות ישראל, לאבנר בן נר ולעמסה בן יתר וירא הגן וישם דמי מלחמה בשלום, וייתן דמי מלחמה בחגורתו אשר במתניו ובנעלו אשר ברגליו. ועשית כחכמתך ולא תורד שיבתו בשלום שאול, ולבני ברזילי הגלעדי תעשה חסד והיו באוכלי שולחנך, כי כן קראו אלי בבכי מפני אבשלום אחיך, והנה עמך שמי בן גרה בן הימיני מבחורים, והוא קללני קללה נמרצת ביום לכתי מחניים, והוא ירד לקראתי הירדן, ואשמע לו באדוני לאמור, אם עמיתך בחרב. ואתה אל תנקהו כי איש חכם אתה, וידעת את אשר תעשה לו, והורדת את שיבתו בדם שאול. וישכב דוד עם אבותיו, ויקבר בעיר דוד. והימים אשר מלך דוד על ישראל 40 שנה, בחברון מלך 7 שנים, ובירושלים מלך 33 שנים. ושלמה ישב על כיסא דוד אביו, וייתן מלכותו מאוד. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, צור כל העולמים, צדיק בכל הדורות, האל הנאמן האומר ועושה, המדבר ומקיים, שכל דבריו אמת וצדק. נאמן אתה הוא אדוני אלוהינו, ונאמנים דבריך, ודבר אחד מתברך אור, אך אור לא ישוב ריקם, כי אל מלך נאמן ורחמן אתה, ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הנאמן בכל דבריו.
אמן.
רחם על ציון כי היא בית חיינו, ולעלובת נפש תושיע, במהרה בימינו, ברוך אתה אדוני. משמח ציון בבניה, שמחנו אדוני אלוהינו באליהו הנביא עבדך, ובמלכות בית דוד משיחך, במהרה יבוא ויגל ליבנו, על כיסאו לא ישב זר, ולא ינחלו עוד אחרים את כבודו, כי בשם קודשך נשבעת לו, שלא יכבה נרו לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן דוד, על התורה ועל העבודה ועל הנביאים ועל יום השבת הזה, שנתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו, לקדושה ולמנוחה, לכבוד ולתפארת. על הכל אדוני אלוהינו, אנחנו מודים לך וברכים אותך, יתברך שמך בפיך חי, תמיד לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני, Nekadesh HaShabbat. Amen.
Shar kochech, Carol. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
That was lovely.
Thank you.
Lovely.
Thank you.
Another interesting thing I just wanted to highlight was, as I was listening to Carol chant, this is a very, very interesting Haftarah as well. And, you know, David, even in his death, is very, very cerebral. He's very, very smart. And he's left some unfinished business, if you will, for Shlomo, for his son Solomon. And he instructs him to do so. But, you know, he does so in a way that's very clever. He says to Shlomo, in a very interesting way. He knows that, you know, Shlomo is one who is very, very intelligent and is able to use his mind to be able to achieve anything in his life. So he says to him in verse 9 here, so do not let him go unpunished. He's talking about one of King David's enemies. For you are a wise man, and you will know how to deal with him. So he's placating and also really appealing to his son Solomon as a way of saying, you know, you're a wise guy. You'll know what to do. I have faith in you. Okay. All right. So King David, even in death, you know, very, very cerebral, very, very intellectual guy. All right. We are now turning back into our Sidurim. Okay. We're going to continue with page 148 for the prayer for the congregation. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yishem Secharam V'yasir Mehem L'chol Machala V'yirepal Chol Gufam V'yislal Chol Avonam V'yishlal Chol Bracha V'atzlacha V'chol Masei Yedeihem Im Kol Yisrael Acheim V'nomar Amen. We also want to make sure that all of our loved ones are in our hearts and in our minds. And we want to, at this time, offer a prayer for healing. So if there is someone in your life that you know who needs healing in any type of capacity, in body, spirit, mind, Caitlin, I'd like to ask you just to unmute anyone who needs to, and to say their name at the appropriate time when I pause for that. Misheberach Avotenu Avraham Yitzchak Yaakov Sara Richa v'Chevleya Hu Yivarech v'Yirapei et
Alman ben Rachel, Muriel Bassick, Abraham Bassick.
Uncle Gilbert.
Hannah Etta Bat Frida.
Rabbi Mendel ben Benjamin Yitzchak.
Hesher Bat Hinda.
Yisrael ben Chaya Esther.
Vet Engel Harriet Faber Renee Gasparini Joshua Shepsele Malka Rochelle Gitala George Mann Mary Pecker Walter Peterson Shale Schwartz Zev Ben Gittel or Silverstein Zelig Ben Aharon Miriam Soldar Magles Esusa Ve'et Kol HaCholim B'Kol HaKdosha Beit Ohr HaKadosh Baruch Hu Melech Rachim Aleichem Lach Azitam Rapotam V'yishlach Lehem Me'era Refuat Shamayim Min HaShamayim Refuat HaNefesh Refuat HaGuf Betoch Sha'ar Cholei Yisrael Shabbat Hi Mlizok U'Refu'a Kravo Alavo Hashtabag Lavizon Kaviv Nomar Amen. Let us sing the prayer for healing together. Mi sheberach avotenu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu mekor habracha le'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shelema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. We continue in our service with Ashrei, page 151. Ashrei Yoshevetecha Luchasela. Hashem Shechach Hashem Shana Haltel David. Gador Hadar Kvoder Tov Anachoraf Machama Secha Yud Kvod Malchutecha Yomei Ugutvordecha Yeda Beir Malchutecha Mchudom Einei Chol Elecha Yisa Beir Viatan Tzadik Adonai B'Chol Rachav Chasib Chol Ma'asav Retzon Yemim. Tehillah Adonai Yedaber Pi Vivarech U'Masor Shkem Shol Olam Va'ed V'anach Nevarech Ya Me'ata V'Yad Olam Hallelujah. We continue on page 154. Uvnucho Yomar. Shuvan Vaytu Yisrael. Mr. Weisford, if you please, Kaylin, if you're able to unmute Joseph Weisford. He has some words for us of a precious teaching.
I give you good instruction, forsake not my Torah. It is a tree of life to those who take hold of it, and happy are those who support it. Its ways are ways of pleasantness, and all its paths are peace. Turn us to thee, O Lord, and let us return. Renew our days as of old.
Ki lekach tov natati lachem, Torati al tazovu, Eitz chaim hi, lama chazikim ba, ve'tomchea Meushar derachea darchenoam v'chol netivoteha shalom hashivenu Adonai Elecha v'nashua Chadesh Chadesh Yameinu Chadesh Yameinu Kekedem. I would like to turn the floor over to Mr. Marshall Zucker, who is going to share some words of Torah for us for one of his favorite Parshat Vayechi. Excuse me. So we can get him unmuted. There we go. I just need to get you unmuted, Marshall. You're still muted there. Need to make sure you're unmuted.
Yeah,
there
good.
You go.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you very much. All right. I had mentioned yesterday that this portion is my favorite portion. There's so much to it. And again, they're all children of Jacob. Now, this is the most terrifying of all the Sidrot to me because it's the last conversation that a parent and a child are going to have. And let me tell you, this is something that can be a terrifying thing, whether it's scheduled. In this case, it's kind of scheduled. They knew what was happening. It was orchestrated that way or unexpected. For those of us that are through this, and we've been through it and it came out successfully, it's a major relief. I know what the difference is. The first cousins in my mother's family, very far extended. I was 25 and a half years younger than my oldest. And the last time we ever spoke, we had a terrible conversation. And it was nothing that I feel any guilt, but it's still something of great memory to me. So fortunately, my conversations with my parents were good ones. Didn't know that they were happening in my mother's case, especially, even though she was much older, but it was a good one. In fact, it was my youngest son's birthday and we went to visit. It was a great last time. Customs are set in Vayechi. The first time we hear about illness, Joseph brings Ephraim and Manasseh to visit. And at that point too, it makes a custom that when a loved one is ill, that people make visits. Now, promises are made to Jacob. Now, when Jacob talks to Joseph about being buried in Canaan, he makes Joseph swear that he will do this for Jacob because Jacob knows that Joseph has the power. Joseph is extremely powerful. Later on, when Jacob talks to his other children, he makes them promise, but he knows their promises are very, very unimportant because they don't have power the way that Joseph does. Now, when Joseph goes for the burial and to bury Jacob, it becomes where all the power of Egypt goes with him. They all travel with him. It reminds me of that cartoon, King Leonardo. Wherever King Leonardo went, everybody went with him, and it's the same thing. Now, the Egyptians mourned for Jacob as they did for royalty. It was a tremendous funeral scene. It reminds me in childhood of President Kennedy's funeral and Winston Churchill's as well. Now, even though it is Jacob's world, this is about Joseph and the relationship between father and son. As was pointed out before when we studied with our Joseph, that father is still mourning Rachel. Only Jacob and Joseph really have feelings about Rachel. The father talks about the burial, and he still talks about with sadness, even though this morning I learned too that they were not that far away where Rachel could have been buried with the other forebearers. Didn't know about that until today, but he still is mourning Rachel and is very upset with himself. I guess that's another one of the things that he feels badly about if he admits to it. Because Jacob, as I'm going to mention in a moment or so, does not necessarily see his fault. And this, again, is a reason for Jacob's insistence on his burial in the cave of Machpelah. Now, the prayer, blessing, curse, warning, and assessments that come in the way that Jacob speaks to his sons are very erratic, because he says it what's going to be, but he also uses it as public humiliations for his three oldest sons. He really does a lot of public evaluation. How much of this evaluation comes from his failure as being a father? Now, Reuben, again, tragic Reuben. And Reuben tried. I feel very, very badly for him. Everything that he tried, he failed at. His status is taken away from him. He's not, he says that you shall excel no longer. He actually pulls away the status of Reuben as the oldest son. Shimon and Levi had a bigger part, and this came up a little bit, and I mentioned to Joe this morning that I've never seen this in the writings, but does Jacob have any feeling of failure? The fact that he did not protect Dinah leading up to the tragedy of what happened with her. But actually, the two brothers do go for revenge. So maybe they're standing up for her more than Jacob ever did. Now, the other sons are given certain premonitions. They're somewhat also of they goes quickly through them as afterthoughts. Dinah is not mentioned, and he's very ambivalent about Benjamin. I have not read at all in the studies. What is Jacob's feelings towards Benjamin? Again, it's the younger child of his beloved Rachel, but it's Rachel's death when giving birth to Benjamin. Now, then comes the Judah statement. Now, up until this year, personally, I've always felt that it was a gross inflation of Judah's efforts. I understand a little more what Judah has done this year. But I also think that this is a little self-serving because Jacob is very praiseworthy of Judah. But remember, maybe this is one of his steps in taking that his beloved Joseph is not going to be hurt by Leah's sons, who are not quite the plurality of his children, but are the plurality. They're not the majority, but they're plurality. They made up, got in trouble with that word, but they made up a little white lie also about Jacob wanting no retribution from Joseph for the rest of them. All right, it's Jacob's world and we just live in it. He did not learn from his errors. He makes his grandchildren his sons, no less than Reuben and Simon. Could you imagine grandparents getting together with the grandchildren? And a couple of those grandchildren are favored among the rest of them. So he does not stop this at all. He also makes Joseph his oldest. He gives Joseph all of the rights of the oldest child. If he's able to do it, and he just does it. And also, this allows Rachel's children to get an extra share. So it's not just the two sons, but I guess it's Joseph, it's Benjamin, and the two grandsons that become the major inheritors. So at least he pushes Rachel's grandchildren ahead. This gives he gives, of course, the higher blessing to the younger Ephraim, even after Joseph lovingly points out that he's mixing up the order of the son's birth, and Jacob is loving in his correction right back to Jacob. Well, Joseph gets the right of the firstborn. He stays in Egypt. He lives to be 110 in the way that Moses lives to be 120, because 110 is the ideal age in Egypt. Sir Thomas More, also known as Paul Scofield, said that the hatred of the brothers did more for Joseph than loving him. Egypt was good for Joseph, but he was still in exile, which brings up Joseph's one of three Jewish leaders in foreign lands, where he becomes very, very much a leader. Now, Disraeli, Joseph is not born in the land that he becomes a leader in. Disraeli is a second generation leader, but Henry Kissinger, who I'm not somebody who I have the greatest respect for, was also an immigrant who gets great power as a Jewish person, even though I don't think most of us would consider Henry Kissinger a Jewish role model. Again, I would like to know if I'm wrong about that. All right, Joseph stresses that he does not get buried in Egypt. His tie to Moses is this, and that Moses carries his body throughout the land to get him reburied. And that Joseph does see his great-grandchildren going a generation further than what Psalm 128 says in our nighttime prayers. And then Joseph now dies along with his brothers, though he seems to predecease many of them, even though he's among the youngest. And for that, I once again say that this is the most important portion to me. It's thought-provoking and, again, terrifying in its way. And I hope I brought a little insight to this portion to you. Thank you.
Shar koach, Marshall. Shar koach. Thank you very much. We continue with the Musaf service in our Sidurim, page 155. Please rise if you are able. יתקדל ויתקדש מרבה, בעלמא תברכתם לך מלכותי, בחיי חורף ישראל, בגלה וזמן קריב ימרו, אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם ומעמיה, יתברך, יתברך, וישתבח ודוד נשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ותלש מקודשה בריחו לאלה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושחתה ונחמתה דאמירן במאבימרו. Amen. 156. Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu ve'Elohei Avoteinu Elohei Avraham Elohei Yitzchak ve'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Rachel ve'Elohei Leah Ha'el HaGadol HaGibor ve'Hanora El Elyon Gomel Chasadim Tovim וקונה הכל, וזוכר חסדי אבות, ומביא גואל לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה. מלך עוזר וכרמושיע מגן, ברוך אתה אדוני, מגן אברהם ובוקר שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיים את טמאת הרב להושיע, משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיי מתים רחמים רבים, סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומתיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך במיתום חיים מצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות מתים. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי המתים. 157, the Kedusha, we put our feet together. Now read 7 nations. נעריצך ונקדישך כסוד שיח שרפי קודש המקדישים שמך בקודש ככתוב על יד נביאך וכרז זה ויאמר קדוש 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 אדוני צבאות מלוא כל הארץ כבודו. כבודו מלא עולם משרתיו שרים זה לזה איה מקום כבודו לעומתם ברוך יאמרו ברוך כבוד אדוני ממקומו. ממקומו הוא פיפין ברח מיחמיה. ממקומו הוא יפן ברחמים, הוא יפן ברחמים, ויחונם המייחדים שמו, ערב ובוקר בכל יום תמיד, פעמיים ביעבה, שמה אומרים, שמה ישראל, אדוני אלוהינו, אדוני אחד. Avinu
Yashmi'enu berachamav shenit, berachamav shenit, shenit leyene kol chai, vehu, Yashmi'enu berachamav shenit, berachamav shenit, shenit leyene kol chai, Aliyot lachem, liyot lachem leElohim vehu yashmi'enu berachamav shenit berachamav shenit sheni leyene kol chayim ani arna Elohechem ובדברי קודשך כתוב לאמור ימלוך אדוני לעולם אלוהיך ציון לדור ודור הללויה לדור ודור נגיד גולך לדור ודור נגיד גולך ולנצח נצחים קדושתך נקדיש ושכחך אלוהינו כנו לא ימוש לעולם ועד לדור ודור נגיד קולך לדור ודור נגיד קולך כי אל מלך גדול וקדוש אתה כי המלך גדול וקדוש אתה ברוך אתה אדוני האל שים שלום בעולם טובה. If you have not finished davening, please continue at your own pace. We continue with Kaddish Shalem, page 181.
יתגדל ויקדש מרבה, בעלמא תברא כתמליך מלכותי, בחייכון ובמלכי ישראל, בגרב זמן קריב ימרו, אמן. יהי שמי רבה מברך, לעולם ולעלמיה יתברך. יתברך וישתבח וידע ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ולשמע קודשה בריחו, לעילה מכל תבשילתם, תושחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמא וימרו, אמן. תתקבע צאן ובכל ישראל, קודם עוון ושמיה וימרו, אמן. יהי שלמה רב מן שמיה, וחיים על נס וימרו, אמן. עושה שם במרומיו, ויעשה שלום, עלינו ועל כל ישראל, וימרו, amen. Ein Kelohenu 182. En Kelohenu, en Kadonenu, en Kemalkeinu, en Kemoshienu, Michel Elohenu, Michadonenu, Michel Malkeinu, Michel Moshienu, Nodel Eloheinu, Nodel Adonenu, Nodel Malkeinu, Nodel Moshienu, Baruch Eloheinu, Baruch Adonenu, Baruch Malkeinu, Baruch Moshienu, Atahu Eloheinu, Atahu Adonenu, Atahu Malkeinu, Atahu Moshienu, Atahu Shektiru, Avotenu Lefanecha, Toret Asamim. We rise for Aleinu, page 183. Aleinu לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי ארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים, הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נוטה שמיים ויוסר הארץ, ומושב עיקרו בשמיים ממעל, ושכינתו זו בגובי מרומים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, עבד מלכנו אפס זולתו, כך כתוב בתורתו, וידעת היום השבות אל לבביך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים, בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ, מתחתנו, כנקבל חבל. לכבוד שמך יקרתנו. Thus is written in your Torah, Adonai reigns forever and ever. Such is the prophetic assurance. Adonai shall be acknowledged as king over all the earth, and on that day Adonai shall be one and his name one. ונאמר, והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד. ושמו אחד. Continue with page 184, Mourner's Kaddish Kadishatom. This week we are remembering the following individuals: Frank Bennett, Sam Brzozowski, Morris Bigman, Benjamin Bloomstone, Roberta Kudyaker, Madeline Goldberg, Julius Goldstein, Joseph Greenfeld, Dorothy Hauptman, Lloyd Hyman, Madeline Jacobson, Albert Jacobson, Marcia Kaplan, Shirley Keitel, Martin Kirschenbaum, Jack Leibowitz, Daniel Lewis, Dorothy Perlmutter, Rebecca Rosen, Bella Siegelwax, Henry Smith, Miriam Terry, Irene Ziegler. Those who are observing Yortzeit and those who are in their period of mourning. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah. Be'alma divra kirute v'amlich malchute. Bechayechon uv'yomechon uv'chaye dechol beit Yisrael. ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehi shemei rabba mivarach le'alam ul almei almaya. Yitbarach ve'yishtabach ve'yitpa'ar ve'yitromam ve'yitnaseh. Ve'yit hadar ve'yit aleh ve'yit halal. Shemei dekudesha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata. Tushbechata v'nechemata. Da'amiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehi shalama rabba min shemaya. V'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Osei shalom bimromav. Hu yasei shalom. Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. All right. Do we have, I saw him earlier. I don't know if he's still here. Mr. President, Bruce, are you here? I don't think so. I think we lost him. All right. Oh no, there he is. There he is. So, Keelan, if you're able to unmute and spotlight Bruce Nelson, he has some announcements for us.
I'm here, everybody. Shabbat Shalom. Wishing everybody a very healthy, happy, secular new year and hope for better times in 2021. Services for the week upcoming are as follows. We will have a minyan Sunday morning at 9 a.m. There'll be a minyan Monday morning at 8 a.m. and there'll be a minyan Thursday morning at 8 a.m. The rabbi, despite being on sabbatical, will have her meditation class on Wednesday at 10 a.m. Check the website for a pre-recorded weekly sessions. Next Saturday at 10:30 a.m. we will have junior congregation. On Tuesday, January 12th at 1:30 p.m. Hazak will be presenting the Making the Dick Van Dyke Show. More information will follow shortly. On Wednesday, January 13th, Sisterhood Book Club will present How to Make a Life with author Florence Reese Kraut, and look for Havdalah services to return on Saturday, January 23rd at 6 p.m. We also extend a mazel tov to Stacy Ring, daughter of Debbie and Glenn Ring, on her engagement to David Heimovich. Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbos, good Shabbos. We conclude with Adon Olam, page 187. Adon Olam Hashem Malach B'terem Kol Yitzir Nivra Leidnaso B'chefso Kol Azai Melech Shemo Nikra Ve'yacharei Kichlot HaKol Levado Yimloch Nora Ve'hu Haya Ve'hu Ove Ve'hu Yihye B'tifara Ve'hu Echad Ve'en Sheni Lamshilo Le'achbira Beli Reshit Beli Tachlit Ve'lo Haoz Ve'am Yisra Ve'hu Elim Ve'chai Goalim Ve'tzur Chevli Be'en Sara Ve'hu Nisi Umanos Li Menat Kosi Beyom Ekra Beyado Afkid Ruchi Beyetishan Beyaira Bimruchi Geviati Adonai Li Veloi Ra. Good Shabbos. We want to make sure everyone can be unmuted, Caitlin, if you please, so we can all wish each other a lovely and hearty Shabbat Shalom and a Tzoraim Tovim as we're heading into the afternoon.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat